Chapter 5 is Gameplay trailer just came out, and it shows us everything with tons of new toys, plant monsters, and even the prototype's face. Let me explain first by breaking down the trailer. In our first few scenes, we can actually see how Huggy will die in Chapter 5. I say this because we see the prototype walk around every other toy, which all have the correct injuries from when we slimmed them. Mommy has her limbs and abdomen ripped off. Catnap has his shoulder and head punctured from the GrabPack hand and execution, and Doughy is just his hat with dope blobs around. Probably what he turned into after we killed him. But Huggy, however, has no injuries until the prototype stabs his heart himself. This is from my best guess how we'll be introduced to the prototype in Chapter 5. After we hurt Huggy, he'll stab him and add him to his collection with the others. Past that, we see the case that the prototype was talking about in Chapter 4, with an empty Poppy head in it, possibly implying that the prototype would achieve his goal. But that's it for this scene, so let's move on. So here we see exactly where we'll start in Chapter 5, with us seeing the Poppy gas-filled room at the end of the hallway. We also see a lot of Poppy gel barrels here for some reason. In our next scene, we get confirmation that a large portion of the labs will be a place meant for children, with padded guardrails, posters of Lily and the smiling critters, and colorful walls. Here we can also see that the labs are very expensive, with a large foggy cave system in the windows. But that's about it, so let's move on.
You're the one they've been talking about!
Okay, so here we see one of the tortured denizens that the Steam description was talking about. We see that he's one of the wrong side outer mouths that has seemingly been turned back inside as they're stitching in his midsection, and his eyes look normal. More proof of this is seen in his veins, which are filled with Poppy gel, just like what we see in the ones the prototype was experimenting on. We also see that he has baseball staff that has been teased for a while now, because he's the one with it from my best guess. He'll be using this staff to help us progress through the factory, or might actually give us this staff as a new GrabPack, as it looks similar to the R we see later in the trailer. The final detail he has is the Huggy Wuggy medal he has on his satchel, implying that he's actually the leader of whatever rebellion he's a part of, explaining him saying we're the ones they have been talking about. But that's about it for this guy, so let's move on.
We're not the first to try and take out the prototype.
Okay, so in our first scene, we see what seems to be the separator of the labs, with the children's section having padded walls and pipes leading into the grittiest sections with similar architecture to the prison. In our next scene, things get a lot more interesting, with us seeing a new GrabPack in hand. The one we see here seems to work off of pressure as implied by the gauge on the middle. It seems like this hand is being used to calibrate this liquid-based raw puzzle. Past this, we can also see the little star walkie-talkie that has been teased on our left GrabPack. We'll get more into that in our next scene.
I can see you.
Okay, so here's our first look at our boss fight with Lily. It seems like the star walkie-talkie is actually helping us see Lily's hair on the floor with a black light. This is indicated by his sunglasses, which have a similar neon theme, and the night vision that we have. Once the player looks back at Lily and she says that she can see us, the walkie-talkie turns scared. This implies that during this boss fight, our goal will be to follow her hair to not be spotted. Kind of like a game of hide and seek. There's not really much else here though, so let's move on.
Everyone tries, they fail.
Okay, so here we get our only real glimpse at the prototype's body, and it's absolutely huge. Here we also can see that red poppy smoke is flooding the room, possibly implying the prototype will be using Catnap's red smoke to help him catch us, making this sequence even harder. But moving on.
He's going to kill them all.
What? Okay. So these things clearly aren't toys and are living mushrooms with eyes. I really have no idea on what this could even remotely mean. So let's move on to our next scene. Here, we see Lily seemingly making a sit at a tea party with her and some inanimate toys. This confirms that Lily would actually be a child that was recently made, as she acts unlike any other toy we've seen, which have all matured over time. We also see that she even has a dedicated purple room with multiple doors along with paintings. Because of this room, and her childlike persona from my best yes. This is one of the prototype's experiments after the hour of joy with an orphan. It seems like he's treating this toy as his child as well, due to her having a refurbished and dedicated room with toys. This, or she's just a schizo like mommy. But moving on.
But everyone has a weakness.
Okay, So this weird-looking machine seems extremely important to Chapter 5, as after we power it on, we get flashbacks to what seems to be the theater incident as we see the same yellow hazmat suits we saw in the Chapter 4 tape. Now, the purpose of this machine is a bit more questionable, as there's not really any hints other than the flashback. My best theory is that we are using this machine to remember some of the events in Playtime COC, to understand the prototype's weakness. What if when we quit the factory, they made us go in this machine to forget some of the things we learned about how the toys are made so the information doesn't get out of the factory? This would explain us remembering all of this randomly. But moving on.
This is our chance.
It's you.
Okay, these are probably the weirdest scenes in all of Poppy Playtime. In the first scene, we see a wrong-side Altimo on the Pianosaurus chair that we saw in the prototype trailer. It seems like his body is actually being rebuilt with the Poppy gel as we see it forming his lungs. In the next scene, we see what seems to be a garden-like area, which is where the fungus from before is growing, possibly meaning its growth will be a part of a puzzle as implied by the star walkie-talkie having a sun icon. In our next scene, we see whatever this eldritch horror is, with multiple faces and a weird sappy core. From my best guess, this is how the living poppy gel is made, as this thing is actually a poppy flower as implied by the red petals coming from it. The bulb coming from it also is the only other goopy substance we see that looks close to it. This would explain the veins in the poppy gel and its random growth, as it's literally a giant poppy seed. This doesn't really explain the faces though, so let's move on.
You're alive.
Okay, so here we see that Poppy and Kissy have officially been captured after the events of Chapter 4. Poppy seems to be damaged as her dress is partially missing, showing metal scrap. Here we also see that the blood around her eyes is gone, which means the prototype probably gave her some kind of medication for it, possibly explaining what he was doing in his trailer. Beside her, we also see the good half of Kissy with a crooked smile. I don't really know if she's gonna live this chapter, so comment down below your theories and like and subscribe while you're down there. But moving on to our next scene. Here we see the same house we saw in the Ark, with a wrong-side Altimo running from it. This implies that these wrong-side Altimos will be a constant threat throughout the chapter, like the nightmare critters, that are also bigger in size, meaning they will be more threatening. Here we also can see how the star walkie-talkie works, as there's another one on the ground highlighted in white. This would explain why different ones have different faces and functions, probably working like how the GrabPacks do, with us having to switch them out depending on the section. But moving on.
You're running out of time. Bye.
Okay, so here we immediately see what is probably how we got into that dark room at the start of the trailer, with Lily dropping us down into darkness. It seems like her whole gimmick will be playing games with us, like Mommy Longlegs, as in the background she starts counting and says we're running out of time. This would explain the hide and go seek game from earlier too, and would go with her childlike persona. In our next few scenes, there's not really much to note, as it's just regular Parker sections other than the fact there will be multiple floors in the labs as she saw with the stairwells. But let's move on. Okay, so there's a lot to break down here. First off, we see the same GrabPack hand we saw in the prototype trailer that seems to be charged similar to how the green hand was. Now, because of the battery we saw on the GrabPack and condemnation from my best guess, that's what will be powering this hand. We see that it's probably used to power up doors with the yellow stations on them. Now besides this here, we see encounter with Huggy in the conditioning room section of the labs, as we see the same fake fields and sky panels. It seems like this section will work similar to the Yonabe section, because it looks like Huggy is free roaming. In our next scene, we see a continuation of this weird fake room with us seeing fake rocks and plant life, huge spy panels, and even an ice cream truck that we're powering to break the gate. Here, we also might get a hint on how the yellow hand works, as the star has a charging smile, meaning that there will be multiple charges in the hand to use, instead of just one that's timed. This section here also might be connected to Lily Love Braids, because of the purple coloring and star on the gate, along with the fact that this is a fake room probably used for kids to wait in. But that's about it for this scene, so let's move on. In our first scene, we see the jump scare animation for the wrong side Altimos confirming that they're not on our side. Although because of the blurry effects, I suspect that they won't one-shot us like the mini critters. In the next scene, we can see another use for the yellow GrabPack hand powering a yellow slab which we use to run away from Lily. This slab seems to work similar to the old handles, as it pulls us directly towards it. Here, we also get confirmation that Lily will be trying to slime us this chapter, with her looking much angrier in this scene while chasing us, possibly being because we're running away from her and not playing with her more. But moving on. Okay, so in these scenes we get constant back-to-back action shots. In the first, we see us going through some kind of assembly line, possibly in a chase scene or puzzle room. In the next, we see another hockey chase that seems to be at the start of the chapter as implied by our GrabPack being the old one. Next, we see Lily screaming surprise, with us tied up in her hair, possibly being after we first meet her or in a game. After this, we see how us and Huggy got into the weird paneled rooms as we see him try to get up to catch us as if he just fell down. Also, because this seems to be a cutscene, this could be how Huggy dies too, with the prototype stabbing him after we beat him in the panel rooms. In the next scene, we see Lily destroy stuff with her hair in a continuation of her chase scene from earlier. And in our final scenes, we see multiple instances of the prototype trying to kill us with his legs, possibly being a continuation of the scene from early in the trailer. From this, I'm kind of scared that we actually won't see his full face or body this chapter, but we'll have to see. That's it for these scenes, so let's carry on. Okay, so here we see probably the best look of the prototype that we're gonna get, with small parts of his face being visible in the glass. Now, of course, we see the yellow eye that we've seen in the art. Besides that, we can see that a majority of his face is white with scars and stitches on it. This means his face has to be made out of some kind of fabric, like the wrong side outer molds. From my best guess, his face could either one be kinds boring and look like a jester, which is what everyone thinks right now, or two, it could resemble Poppy's face, but be much creepier with a crooked smile and eyes, explaining why we haven't seen his body or face all this time. And with that comes the end of the trailer. Leave your theories below and like and subscribe.